Thanks, Thomas. Niall, welcome everybody. First and foremost, Niall, in particular, you. It's good to see you, and it's good to hear from you again. And obviously, a lot of people back home here in Northern Ireland keep a very keen eye on how the Northern Ireland players from over here are doing over in Scotland and in England and in other places. So delighted to see that you're still figuring at Aberdeen. It's your second spell there with the COVID and the coronavirus and all that's going on in sport around it. How are things in Scotland, and how are things in Aberdeen in particular?
Oh, first of all, thanks for having me. Hello, everyone. No, things are sort of semi-normal at the moment. I'm just happy that I'm able to obviously train at the moment, able to play games. It is very strange, obviously, with no fans there. Even sort of the younger generation that we just opened up a brand new training ground there about a year and a half ago, and you're used to sort of seeing the young fans about the training ground and obviously around the stadium and stuff. So it's obviously sad times that the young kids aren't able to obviously get out and train as much as they possibly want. So it's just obviously mentally them staying strong, keeping active as much as possible. But regarding sort of all the COVID stuff, it is tough. But I used the first sort of lockdown to sort of keep myself busy. I was out walking loads, jogging, running, out on the mountain bike, just trying to do anything as much as I possibly could, just to keep myself busy more than anything.
Are you any good at the DIY, or are you crap at that?
No, that's up to my brother. My brother's a joiner, so he does all that sort of stuff. So any problems, he's always on the other end of the phone, that's for sure.
Now, how big a blow is it as a professional footballer playing with no fans? You know, you're playing in an empty stadium every week. Do you feel it? Have you got used to it, or do you think that it's something that has taken away from the game somewhat?
Nah, it's a massive blow. I think I've always said it, like football without the fans is nothing. Me in particular, I've always loved playing in front of fans. I've always thrived off like going to intimidating atmospheres such as Tynecastle, obviously Ibrox, Celtic Park, and of course love playing at Windsor Park in front of the home fans. Going to stadiums all over Europe, playing in front of big crowds, playing in big tournaments. Like as any footballer, you obviously want to be involved in that, and even seeing sort of big crowds on TVs, it's stuff what dreams are made of to actually play in front of fans. But you definitely miss them. I think it swings both roads. I think even sometimes you have players who like to perform on a big stage, and then you've obviously maybe certain players who maybe might struggle in front of fans. So it's maybe helped a small percentage of players who might struggle in front of bigger crowds. But I'd say most players, if you ask them, they definitely miss the fans, that's for sure.
Yeah, how big of a help would it be if you go to play against the likes of Celtic at Celtic Park or Rangers at Ibrox? The fact that they have no fans, that can be a very intimidating atmosphere, as I'm sure everybody knows. Do you think it's to your advantage and to their disadvantage?
I think a bit of both. I think I've always found when I've went to the likes of Celtic Park and Ibrox, the thing is with Rangers, Celtic having such a big support, I think even when I've been there with Aberdeen and we've maybe went on top and won games, we find more often than not the sort of the crowd sort of maybe get a bit anxious and maybe sort of don't get behind their team as much as they probably want, and maybe get a wee bit on edgy and on their seats. But thing is, if you're at a big club, you always expect criticism along the way. You always expect great support. So it has its ups and downs, but more importantly, there's obviously talk of hopefully getting the fans back in May, June time. So hopefully that can happen sooner rather than later, because as time goes on, you definitely miss them, that's for sure. And hopefully that can happen sort of middle of summer. Looking forward to obviously the start of next season.
Yeah. I was just talking to you off air before we came on, and I'd been just checking up on you, and I knew you'd signed when you joined Aberdeen for the second time. It was on a 3.5-year deal. That's up now at the end of this season. Any news on anything happening?
No news just yet. I'm probably in a good position. I'm going to be out of contract. I can obviously weigh up my options, see what's sort of out there. It's tough at the moment with sort of financially at the club, obviously, with people being on furlough, being deducted wages, etc. Us having to give up certain things along the way. So I'll just sort of play up a year, try and play as much football as I possibly can between now and the end of the season. Hopefully a few international games under my belt next month as well, and just see sort of what the future lies come the summer. But regarding sort of playing football, I'm loving it, and I just want to play for as long as I possibly can. So there's definitely a few years left in me yet, that's for sure.
Well, funny, that was one of my questions. I was going to say 33 years of age, am I right?
Yep, 33.
Yeah, and how's training and how's injuries? Over your career, and you've had a great career to date, over your career, you haven't had that many bad injuries, Niall, but do you find it a bit tougher? Is it longer to recover now at 33 years of age?
I think I'm very fortunate because we have obviously the best of the best facilities. We have the physios, masseuses, just all the right things, whether it's all the gym work, rehab work. As time goes on, we're sort of with more options to sort of to look after it. But I'm always a big believer in every little helps, whether it's recovery, whether it's swimming after a game, whether it's ice, hot, cold baths, whether it's recovery pumps, whether it's more stretching or yoga, different things. I'm always a big believer in every little helps. Certain things obviously work well with certain individuals. But yeah, no, I'm just fortunate in the position that I'm in that I can have these facilities sort of at my hand. So yeah, I can't complain.
And do you have to watch what you eat, Niall, or you don't carry a lot of weight, but do you like a Chinese or do you like a fish supper or do you have to be very careful about what you eat?
I would be landy if I said I didn't like a Chinese or a pizza at the weekend after a game. But no, well, I'm unfortunate in the sense of like in the mornings when I go in, we get our breakfast provided for us. We get a canteen at the training ground, so we sort of get our breakfast and lunches made for us, which is ideal for me. And I only really have to cook in the evenings, and that's been great for me. But sort of back to my body, etc. Growing up, I played a lot of Gaelic football and I played obviously soccer throughout my sort of younger days, and I think that always stood me in good stead when I went into full-time professional football. I had sort of like a good upbringing. I was sort of strong and sturdy and sort of mentally right as well. I was just sort of had that sort of good background behind me of playing a lot of sports when I was younger, so I was more sort of robust, and that's definitely helped with injuries. I think a couple of major injuries I had, I snapped ligaments in my ankle a couple of years ago, and I done my 5th metatarsal maybe 7-8 years ago, and that was the time of when it became big when David Beckham done his. But regarding sort of major injuries, and thankfully, touch wood, I've only sort of had a couple along the way.
Aberdeen going rightly this year. Do you see as a European place you're aiming for, Niall? Obviously, it's a big help financially to the club, and just on the other side of that, how are the finances at Aberdeen? Are they struggling with the COVID, or are they still financially reasonably sound?
I think we've been quite fortunate in the sense we've brought in a new chairman there about 2 years ago, but he's probably thinking he's come in the wrong time, where he's maybe had to put a lot of put his hand in his pocket a lot more than he probably should have. But now, sort of moving forward, I think this year's important for us to try and finish third. I think in previous years we've always managed to qualify for Europe, but in saying that, it's always difficult because you always have to get 3-4 rounds. But the thing is, this season, if we manage to finish third, which is obviously going to be tough, but it's we can do it. It's only a one-off playoff round this year, or for sort of next season. So we'll definitely be all guns blazing towards hopefully achieving that, and that will be massive for the club. And European games are brilliant for the club, and I've been fortunate enough. I've been involved in some big nights over the years and on the European stage as well. So as a footballer, it's great being obviously a professional footballer, but sort of going forward, you always want to play in them big games, and obviously the European games is definitely right up there.
You had a 1-0 won at the weekend there against Kilmarnock, now managed by Tommy Wright. Did you see enough in that game that you think Kilmarnock will be safe? Will they avoid relegation? Do you think? And are you glad to see Tommy back?
I was delighted to see Tommy get the job. It probably leaves another opportunity for me if I'm stuck for a club that Tommy might take me, but we'll wait and see. But no, delighted he get obviously another job in Scotland. He's been proven here. He's done very well at St Johnstone. So no, I've definitely, Kilmarnock's always been thereabouts, sort of in the top 6 over the last few seasons, and great to see big Kyle Lafferty signing as well. I'm just happy that hopefully he can get a lot more game time between now and then the season. He came on at half time at the weekend and did well. He was a big threat for them, and even Tommy's come out and spoke about him. They just need a fully fit Kyle Lafferty between now and then the season, and if they have that, he'll definitely be a big help for them to obviously score goals and get points, which they badly need.
Niall, it would be very remiss of me not to ask you your old club, Celtic. A lot going on there at the club at the minute, and of course, a former Northern Ireland International manager, Neil Lennon, under a lot of pressure. It looks like Rangers are going to take the title, bar an absolute collapse. Do you think Lenny's going to survive? Do you think he's going to see this out, or do you think they'll change that?
I think you'll definitely see the end of the season. It is one of those ones, even from the time being a Celtic, no matter how things are going, if you lose one game, it's sort of like the end of the world. Every game is a must-win game, whether you're Celtic or Rangers, and the scrutiny that these sort of put on the managers after defeat is I think it's crazy, to be honest. For him to sort of do as well, I think he's had 20 odd trophies in his career, both as management and players, and for Celtic to win the quadruple treble, and obviously they're not going to win the league this year with obviously Rangers doing so well, and now Rangers have just been so consistent this year. They've been very good, been hard to beat, playing nice football, and now they're going to deserve it when that time comes of obviously being the champions. But now a lot of the sort of the flack that Lenny's coming under, it's definitely not it's not needed, I don't think, but it's just becomes with the job of being in a huge club, and obviously him being there and being there as a player as well, he's always going to come on under scrutiny, whether he's sort of doing great or whether he's not doing well.
They're very demanding. The bigger the clubs, the more demands obviously falls upon everybody, and the fans are spoiled with success, and sometimes that can be the road that breaks your own back because you've spoiled them with success. Do you think he'll be there next year to rebuild that team?
I think he definitely deserves a chance. He's been there now obviously twice, and he's achieved a lot at the club. But it obviously comes with what the board want to do. Peter Lawwell, the chief exec, he's obviously going to move on to different things. So it depends what the club want to do moving forward. It's just a tricky time for a lot of clubs. There's going to be a lot of rebuilding in most clubs. I think even at Aberdeen, there's maybe 9-10 players out of contract. So there's going to be definitely a lot of rebuilding done in most clubs. So yeah, now we're in that category as well. So. Regarding Celtic, there's definitely going to be a rebuilding thing there, whether it's going to be with Neil Lennon or another.
Do you get the vibes that you'll be part of Aberdeen next season, Niall, or do you get that vibe? You know, being an old footballer myself, I always knew maybe when the end was coming and it was maybe time to move on. Do you think you'll be part of it? Have you got any sort of a nod and a wink? No?
No, it's a tricky one. I'm hoping that I do, because obviously I've been here for a long time. I've worked under the same manager. It's up to what the chairman wants to do regarding sort of players, financially, what's there, what's available, and obviously the managerial position at the moment as well. Now, he's obviously, our manager's come under a bit of pressure recently, but he's shown sort of over the course that he's been there that he's always come up with answers. So it's as I said earlier, it's just a rebuilding process for a lot of clubs, and it's going to be the same for us. And whether that's going to be with the current manager or obviously the different set of players, we'll just have to wait and see. But it's just down to me to just sort of keep working hard between now and the end of the season, hopefully get more opportunities, and hopefully get him another shout of hopefully getting another contract, or if it needs to be elsewhere, then so be it.
Moving on now looking back to where it all started for you, basically at Dungannon Swifts. They've just had a managerial change there this past week. Big Chris Lindsay stepped down. So is it a club that you still keep in touch with? Are you in regular contact? And do you ever come over and have a wee look? If you're home, do you go down to watch them?
Of course, no. Dungannon Swifts is massive to me in my career. I even messaged Dixie Robinson the other day. He was obviously going to be caretaker against Portadown. Yeah. I messaged him straight away, and he was quite quick in responding, wanting to sign me up next year if it was at all possible. He was my coach for, I think it's 3 seasons at Dungannon United Youth, and we won 3 Northern Ireland Cups in a row. Our team was brilliant, and what we achieved at Dungannon United Youth was massive. But regarding, I started off in the fun weeks. I just went to the fun weeks as a young boy, and I just sort of enjoyed it. And that's when I got spotted, when Joe McAree and Dixie, etc., approached me to come and join Dungannon United Youth and obviously play with the youth teams, and things just escalated massively from there. And now Dungannon Swifts have always been brilliant to me over the years, and anything that I could do to sort of help them, and even with their new jersey at the start of the season, I helped sort of promote it as well. So anything that I can do to sort of repay the faith that they've shown in me over the years, I'll always do. And when I do get home, I always try and get down as much as I possibly can. And regarding Joe, Rodney, Dixie, guys like that, I always definitely keep in close contact as well, and as they do with my career as well. So I've nothing but thanks for everyone at the club that's helped me massively. They've got a great setup there, and I'm thankful that I came through it, and it's always nice to sort of see when I sort of play for Northern Ireland, do good things, that there are people like them are so proud of you, and it's appreciated massively, that's for sure.
And funny, I was just looking at some of the managers you have played under your career, during your career, and I nearly forgot to put Joe McAree in there, and Joe would have been livid if I'd have left him out. But he's a real character, Joe McAree, and I have a lot of time for him, and we keep in contact, even though he's not involved at the club so much now. I still keep in contact with him because, as you know, he lives and breathes football. But you've played under some great managers, because you moved from Dungannon Swifts to Derry City, if I'm right, and you played under Stephen Kenny there. Yeah. So I was just checking up, and I thought, I've got to give Joe a mention, as I say. But then you moved under Stephen Kenny, and then, of course, moving on to Celtic under Neil Lennon, and then Northern Ireland under Michael O'Neill, and then you had Derek McInnes, and then when you were at Brentford, you were under Uwe Rosler. So you've played under some really high-profile managers, Niall. Would it be very unfair of me, and I don't want to nail you to the wall, would you have a favourite?
No, I've been asked. I remember doing a webinar before, and I was speaking about different managers. I've always found that there's always a good trait to take from each and every manager. Stephen Kenny was brilliant. He's the type of manager you sort of need to know personally to sort of know how to take him. And lots of managers such as Michael O'Neill, McInnes, the sort of attention to detail that they go through, sort of with the opposition, etc. And is second to none. Uwe Rosler, he was just typical sort of German manager. He was just sort of full of energy, relentless on the sideline, always wanted the best. He trained he wanted you to train how you play. We wear shin pads every day in training, which was a first for me. But now Joe McAree back in the day, he was brilliant for me. He didn't really sort of manage me that much. It was more Dixie through the youth systems, but then I sort of Joe maybe at the first team for a bit. But and
Niall, Craig Brown as well.
Yeah, Craig Brown was brilliant. He was like a father figure type thing for me. For him to sort of come across to Ireland, and then both of us met in person, and then for him to sign me, like he signed me as a striker. I never played as a striker, and for him to sign me as a striker and then sort of do well in my first season as a striker was massive. And for him to see them attributes in me was obviously huge. And he was a massive help in me sort of getting my career back on track again, because obviously I went out to Brentford on loan from Celtic. And then I was sort of in a predicament just to sort of try and find a new club. I knew Scotland, I sort of knew the stadiums, the teams, and for Craig Brown to sign me at a big club in Aberdeen was massive. And that sort of helped me revitalise my career and get it all back on track again, because that definitely helped me going forward with sort of keeping my place in the international setup as well.
I was just going to say that Ian Barclough, big shoes for him to fill with taking over from Michael O'Neill. How do you think he's coping there? It's a tough one, and he didn't get off to the best of starts now.
Yeah, it's a very tough one. But you've got to look at Michael's start. Michael, I think, he had one win in his first 18 games as Northern manager, but you could see what he was trying. He was obviously breeding in sort of the younger players, keeping more experienced players. I remember even in my early days, like we're showing up a lot and we're going to all these countries, getting beat all the time. It was obviously disappointing, but obviously once Michael came in, he was sort of, you could see what he was doing regarding sort of how we were playing, how we were like sort of playing better as a team, getting the confidence amongst the squad, starting to win games. And every game we were going into under Michael, when we sort of really started to hit form, we felt like we could beat anybody. And that was a case. We just had an unbelievable campaign, and thankfully sort of everything just went from strength to strength. And having that campaign before the Euros was unbelievable. And to be part of that in this sort of era under Michael O'Neill, as a current international player was just unbelievable. And thankfully I was part of that, because it definitely takes away all the sort of the bad times over the years with sort of with all the games we'd lost.
The other thing I have a few questions for you, and because I know there's a list of people wanting to ask you questions here, but there's some that I want to know as well. Of all the players you've played with at club level, who was the best?
I can never just name one. I've sort of currently.
Could you give me three?
Currently, at the moment, James Maddison, who's at Leicester City, he had a brief spell on loan at Aberdeen for 6 months, and you could tell then like the the attributes he had, the skill he had, that he was going to go on to bigger and better things. He was quite a confident boy, but confident in a good way of his own ability. I was quite lucky. At Celtic, I got to play with the likes of Aidan McGeady, who was something special. Robbie Keane was brilliant. And I remember when I first came in, we a lot of time in training, you do a lot of like boxes and stuff. And I remember Nakamura, who was at Celtic, and he used to never give the ball away, and he was just unbelievable. Scott Brown at Celtic as well, but internationally, I know you said.
I was going to ask you internationally then.
I know you said international, but I've got probably 4 or 5. Steve Davis is right up there. He's just most down-to-earth guy you'll ever meet. Regarding his football ability, is just second to none. Johnny Evans, Garth McCauley, all the sort of the older heads who are obviously been very good over the years. Aaron Hughes, who was a great pro. Early days, Sammy Clingan was a good mate of mine. Was always a consistent player for Northern Ireland as well. And of course,
he'll be pleased to hear that. I'll tell him that.
Yeah, I'll keep him happy. And
what about Gillespie? Did you play with Gillespie?
Yeah, I played with Keith, but Keith probably was. I think he's maybe said it once or twice. I was probably the guy that came in and maybe took his place.
Yeah.
Keith was brilliant. I remember when I first came into the squad, like the George McCartneys, Keith Gillespie's, David Healy's, players like that. They were all brilliant for me when I first came into the squad. So now it was like walking into a squad and that you sort of have known for years. It's always easy to gel with the Northern Ireland boys, and yeah, that's been pleasing for me.
Moving on again, best stadium you've ever played in?
I've been quite fortunate. I've got to play. I remember making my Celtic debut at Wembley. Wembley was unbelievable. Against Tottenham Hotspur. The Lyon Stadium when I scored against Lyon or against Ukraine and France was unbelievable. I think like I played at Wembley, there wasn't a big crowd, but when you see sort of playing the big stadiums with the big crowds, I remember Porto when I scored against Portugal and against when it was Ronaldo's 100th cap that night. Of course, I know it's not the biggest stadiums, but I love playing in Windsor Park because the atmosphere feels like 30 or 40,000. Of course, Celtic Park, Ibrox, stadiums like that. So I've been quite fortunate. I've got to play in a lot of good ones in my career.
Toughest ever opponent? Somebody you really hate seeing the fight of?
I don't really hate too many people, but I remember Pepe played for Portugal. He was just a hard man, and he would just go through you for a shortcut. I remember Contrao, who was a left back, used to be at Madrid, and we played against him at Portugal as well. But I always found I always challenged myself against the good players. I remember when I made my debut against Hungary, and then I played against I think Serbia, and I played against Kolarov, and I'd done quite well as well. So I've always found with sort of the good players, you sort of keep them thinking. If you're sort of quick, sharp, nippy, as I was sort of back in the day, you just sort of try and run in behind or come short. But you always keep the good players thinking. If they're good at something, try and obviously work sort of what they're not good on. And I think that's the most important thing.
Did you have an idol, or do you still have an idol that when you were growing up, or even now, do you have an idol?
Now, of course, now I love Messi. I love Ronaldo. I've been quite fortunate. I've got to play against Ronaldo twice. But growing up, my dad and my brother were always Liverpool fans. I was United growing up. I just wanted to be a wee bit different. But I loved Eric Cantona, Ryan Giggs, sort of similar type players. But yeah, probably players like that growing up. Yeah, Eric Cantona and Giggs probably.
One question I've got to ask you before we move on, Niall, and then I'll maybe throw it open to the rest of the people to ask you a question. VAR. I absolutely hate the sight of it, and I have yet to meet anybody who likes it. How do you feel about VAR?
It's like everything. It's got its goods and its bads, but you just want that sort of clarity, that consistency, and we just haven't been getting it. So it's always frustrating. And the thing I hate most about it is that obviously we don't have it in Scotland, which is probably good at the moment, but for the players playing the Premiership, etc., there must be it just sort of takes away the goodness and the great feeling of actually scoring a goal and celebrating with your friends and your teammates. So that's a big blow as well, because more often than not they're checking every goal they scored. So not a massive fan, but there is definitely positives there. If they're going to sort of continue with it, it definitely needs to be done better. That's for sure.
Yeah, I honestly do. Obviously, I think as you get older in life, you become a wee bit more stubborn and a wee bit more reluctant to accept some of the things that are happening. And an awful lot of the things that have happened in football over the years since I played I think have gone a long way to taking all of the enjoyment out of it, because there's the handball issue now as well. I wanted to ask you about that, because if I'm commentating on a game now at home, I just have to say to Joel Taggart or somebody, was that a handball? I couldn't tell you. I don't even really know what offside is anymore. And even this rule now, where when you know a player's offside and he runs on, but the linesman keeps his flag down and then flags, these things absolutely do my head. Would you agree, or do you think that that's people like me that are past their sell-by date and are too stubborn to accept change? Do you think those changes have been good for the game?
Some of them have been good. The one you mentioned about the offside rule, when they're constantly playing for an extra 10, 20 seconds and then the flag goes up, like if it's a clear offside, then and the linesman's sure and the referee's sure, then obviously they should stop play straight away. Obviously, if it's close, then they have the right to continue on and see what happens. Typical example was Lingard's at the weekend when he scored, it was ruled offside, and then obviously with the VAR, it made it be a goal. So yeah, I'm not a big fan of the offside one at the moment. Obviously the offside when it first started, it was okay, but it's changed its rules over the course of the season, whether it's the end of the shirt or whether it's an armpit or whether it's your knee or foot. It's just crazy. There's no real clarity over it. It just keeps chopping and changing all the time. So as I said earlier, just hopefully sort of moving forward next season, it can all be resolved, that's for sure.
Yeah, I totally agree. And I just think it's a pity, because there's nothing I love more than watching a good game of football. And I think that continually now there's so many stoppages, Niall. And funny, I would have been a very close friend of the late Harry Greggs, and maybe I listened too much to Harry, because he was always effing and blinding every time I went in, about this possession football and everything being built from the back, And one day I was with Harry and he nearly put his feet through the TV, because the commentator says, "This is incredible. That's 30 consecutive passes." And Harry says, "They're not even out of their effing half yet, but they had this 30 consecutive passes, but they weren't really going anywhere. It was backwards and sideways, and it wasn't as direct as it used to be." So, and then when they brought out the rule that from a centre now, when you take the centre, you can pass the ball back, Harry says, "That's it. I'm finished. I'm never going to watch it again. That's the final nail," he says. "Now you can even start a game going backwards."
It's just mad. Even like with the two defenders being able to stand inside the 18-yard box, it's one for sort of, like obviously Guardiola and stuff is obviously a very possession-based team. It works for different teams. A lot of managers like it and a lot of managers don't. Typical example, Burnley don't play a lot of football, but they're very productive in what they do, and that's obviously been hard to beat. And they just sort of build their journey and build their results on being hard to beat. And more often than not, they always come up opportunities to score goals. So I'm sure if you ask most managers out there how they'd play, if they could win a game ugly, they would definitely take it. But obviously, if you play nice football and play passes through the lines and obviously create good chances, it's what a lot of fans want to see. It's what players probably enjoy, sort of being on the ball a lot, etc. So it's got a. I think it's divided probably. A lot of people like sort of possession based, and some people maybe don't. So it's a results based business at the end of the day, and that's what obviously managers are getting paid for, to get results. So if it's working for them to be in possession based, so be it. If not, being a Burnley typical example, as I said, then so be it. Just sort of be hard to beat and sort of try and nick games.
Yeah, I there's nothing more I used to love in football was the likes of you, who's got that skill and pace and can take a fullback on and skin them. And Gillespie was the same. That type of player always got me in the edge of my seat. And whenever you would have got the ball at Windsor Park, for instance, you could have heard the crowd, that the expectation level rose, because they were expecting you to drop a shoulder, take on the fullback, get to the byline, get the cross in, and hopefully Healy or somebody's there to stick it in the back of the net. But now it seems a game of patience, Niall, where, and I wonder sometimes flair players like you and the likes of Gillespie and that, and I wonder, does it in some way inhibit you, because you get the ball and where you might want to, your instinct is to take the fullback on and get to the byline and get across him. And now it's about patience. It's about keeping, it's about ball retention. And when you get the ball now, if you think maybe it's not on to go for him, are you feeling sort of obliged to go back with it and start passing it back and across and up the other side?
Yeah, it's definitely changed over the year. I remember remember my early days at Derry City, like Stephen Kenny, he always just said to me, get chalk in your boots, stay wide, get on the ball, just run at defenders. If you don't get past them, you'll more often than not you'll win a throw in, you'll win a corner, you get your team high up the pitch. So he was always a big believer in just sort of having two wingers, two strikers, get the ball wide, get crosses in the box, and just be positive. And I found that when I first went into the Northern Ireland setup, I remember when I made my debut, anytime I got the ball, there was just like a big uproar from the crowd, and it was just amazing. And from that uproar, just give you the incentive just to run with the ball and try and create chances. But definitely, it's changed over the years. But in saying that, I found sort of early days with Northern Ireland, we didn't really have much possession of the ball, so I was trying to probably counter attack and try and obviously come up with something special or create as much chances as we possibly could. I think over the years under Michael, definitely became more of a possession based team, with obviously being effective at the same time as well. And yeah, it's definitely changed, but I definitely do sort of probably miss the sort of the older days, as the sort of the buzz you used to get. But we still get that buzz, and we still get that sort of bounce off the fans, sort of when the sort of the flair players, and when we're attacking or maybe on the counter attack, we get that from the fans nowadays. Anyway, at Windsor, it's always great. So no, I definitely love it, and yeah, it's good, that's for sure.
And my final question is, a lot of the players, and I love to see players who were good footballers remaining in the game. You're now 33, as you say, you've still a few years left yet. There's absolutely no reason, because you take good care of yourself. Are you contemplating the coaching badges or even management at some stage? And Big Orange Hughes is at it, and Gareth McCauley, I'll be speaking to them lads, and they're really enjoying doing the coaching side of it. Gillespie, on the other hand, when I'm talking to him, he never had any real interest in it. He just it wasn't for him. How are you in that? Are you taking any of your badges, or are you contemplating taking any of your coaching badges?
Yeah, well, I finished my B license, which is a start, which is good, and I feel now that I'm still playing, I think I'm quite fortunate that I can sort of use Aberdeen, like use their training facilities. Like I was doing my B license, and I had to do a video with the under 16s, under 17s. So I have that at my feet, which is good. I can use them. Obviously, I can't do that just now with obviously the COVID situation. But now going forward, I think I'd love to become a manager. Obviously, I'd like to coach, etc., etc. But I think me sort of being who I am and how my character is, being sort of calm and level-headed, I think I'd be more inclined to go down the route of being a manager more so than a coach. But definitely coaching will give me a good sort of platform to sort of move into management. But it is definitely something that I'm definitely interested in. And I think with all the managers you named earlier, I can take definitely a wee piece out of the jigsaw from each manager, and that definitely can stand me in good stead and help me along the way. It is sort of a cruel industry at times in certain leagues. So it's just sort of hopefully having the right opportunity come along at the right time and taking it, and then see where that takes me.
Yeah, I always, as I said before, I always love to see good footballers staying in the game, because I think that a lot of the kids can look up at footballers, and if you walk into a dressing room and you're speaking to kids, well, if they know if you've been there and you've done it, and you're now got the qualifications as well in theory to go ahead with that, I think it means a lot. I know as a player, when I was sitting in a dressing room, if I was listening to somebody who had been there and done it, I always took it on board, Niall. Whereas I did sign for one Irish League manager who wasn't a footballer. He was a school teacher, actually. And anything he said never really registered with me, because I struggled to accept that. And that was very unfair, because he was a very nice man, but I just didn't have the same, should I say, respect for him.
Yeah, no, I think it is key that obviously I've played at a high stage, being an international footballer. There's obviously no bigger achievement than being an international footballer. And for me to stay in the game and have sort of young kids come to me for advice, come to me for whatever they need, for me to help them and for them to listen, and they'll obviously benefit from that. And then it's obviously down to the young kids obviously to go away and work hard on certain things, whether it's on their game or whether it's even just simple things as having good people skills and being respected, and respect your coaches, respect other players as well. So I think, definitely, I would probably love to become a manager, that's for sure. But for me, sort of being in the game for so long, I would definitely like to stay in for a lot longer.
Good man. Well, listen, there's an army of people wanting to ask you questions. There's some of them flashing up my screen here, but I've already asked you them. So, Tom, are you handy?
Yes, of course. There's some questions.
I know you have some emails and some questions, so I'll open up the floor to you.
No problem at all. Thank you, Liam. That's a good insight there. Thank you very much. Now there's a question that has come in, I presume from an Aberdeen supporter, and he's asked the question, during your time at Aberdeen, who's been the best sort of young talent that has came through or that is coming through?
Well, so I said it earlier, the young talent that he didn't come through the system. Obviously, James Madison, he was still relatively young when he played at Aberdeen, and he went back to Norwich City. He was unknown for Norwich City. He was just a bit special. We've had a few sort of players in the last few years. Scott McKenna came through the youth system, who's went on to captain Scotland, play for Scotland, and obviously he's qualified for a major tournament. He moved on to Nottingham Forest for a big sum of money about 6 months to a year ago. But currently, there's a few young lads at the moment. There's a young lad, Calvin Ramsey, he's very good. Boy Duncan, who came on against Rangers and made his debut. So there is talent there. And the good thing about those young boys at the moment, they're actually getting to train with the first team more, because a lot of sort of the younger lads aren't able to train at the moment because they're on furlough. So no, there's definitely young talent coming through there for sure.
Tell us a little bit now about your experience in South Korea, because obviously, you know, you didn't stay too long out there, but what was the appeal of going there in the first place? And talk to us about what happened.
Now, first of all, it was a good experience. I was only there for 6 months. A guy I played with at Celtic, a guy called Ki Sung Young. His dad was the president of a football club over there. An agent got in contact with me. I put him on to my agent. Both of them got speaking, and a big factor for me was the South Korean agent and Ki Sung Young's father. They flew the whole way from South Korea, flew into Belfast to meet me in person. They stayed in Belfast for a couple of days, met me for dinner, got to meet me as a person, see who I was as a guy, and that was a big attraction. All my family were back home. I was sort of in Scotland on my own, etc. And I thought, just why not? It's a new experience. It's something I'll maybe regret if I don't go and do it. I'm still relatively young in sort of the football side of things. I thought, why not? Just go and experience it. I'm glad I did. Football side of things just didn't work out for me. I signed sort of halfway through the season. We ended up getting relegated. We lost the manager after the first 2 months, and then we had a new manager. But the new manager came in. He was great to me. He said to me, look, if you'd been in a bigger, better team, like probably get more opportunities and maybe played more. But regarding the people were so kind, really, really friendly. If I had been, I was sort of staying 3 hours like south of the capital, and it was probably a lot less English speaking people. I was quite lucky. I had my own English interpreter, so he was my best mate. I just done everything with him. But regarding experience, thankful I done it. Just a bit unfortunate things didn't work out, but no, it's definitely not a regret, that's for sure.
What was the food like now?
It was quite westernized, which was lucky because I can be a wee bit picky at times, but the chef was always good. The training ground, like the facilities were top notch, because the 2002 World Cup was in South Korea and Japan, so all the stadiums were unbelievable. Our stadium was a 50,000 seater stadium. But now food, it's very westernized, which was good. So I got to go to like obviously steakhouses, had my sort of Italian food and stuff as well. So yeah, don't get me wrong, I did try sort of the like octopus and stuff like that. So the Koreans definitely eat a lot of crazy stuff, that's for sure.
I think we should get Liam some octopus for his Saturday night tea.
Listen, Niall, I've been out there. I've been in China a few times with the Dunlops, with the motorbike racing, because I'm a big fan of the bikes, as you know, and we would have been out there. And I'm a terrible grubber away from home, honest to God. I can't even take a curry. I'm a very plain old eater. And I remember a lad from Dublin called Eddie Laycock, it was his first ever trip to Macau, which was just off Hong Kong. And Laycock rang me one night pretty late on, and he says, "You'll never guess what, Beckett, I have found a McDonald's." Because he was like me. So I was out of bed like a shot on the way up to this McDonald's, and we lived in McDonald's until I got home again, because they do eat some strange stuff there in the Far East.
That's the thing. Anywhere in the world you go, you'll always get a McDonald's, that's for sure.
Yeah, that's right.
Maybe not the best, now, if you're looking to be a footballer, but
no. So
yeah, keep Liam going. What does it take now to play at the top level, but not just play there, stay there?
I think it's just sort of being level-headed. Always try and keep improving. Try and be consistent. Always take advice. take advice off your coaches, other players, more experienced players as well. Johnny Evans is a typical example. Even to now, like he's always constantly talking to you in training, always constantly talking to you in games, telling you what to do, what not to do. So it's taking advice along the way. You'll never ever stop learning. The older you get, the more you can probably learn. And that's due to you probably becoming more experienced. You seeing the game from different angles. Even when you become going into coaching and you're sort of doing your coaching badges, you can learn off different things like that as well. So you can never stop learning, but definitely take advice on board of your coaches, take advice on board of other fellow teammates, and just try and stay positive. And you have a lot of downtimes in football. Typical example, when I was young, I went to Crewe on trial, and I actually done really well in the game. I scored a couple of goals, and they later told me I was sort of too small. They didn't want to sign me, and like you always hear the sort of the positives, but I've definitely had a lot of setbacks along my way. And another example, when I was at Dungannon Swiss, I sort of broke into the team. I was doing well, and Dungannon Swiss got to the Irish Cup final for the first time in so many years. We're playing infield, and Harry Fay was a manager, and I'll definitely not. I definitely not forgive him, but he actually left me out of the squad. I remember when he named the team, I just burst down in tears when I was sort of left out of the squad. But I just sort of used moments like that just to sort of as an incentive to go on and prove people wrong. And thankfully, I feel I've done that over the years. I've just kept my head down, kept working hard, and when opportunities have come, I've always sort of grabbed them with both hands.
I was at that game. It went got beaten penalties, didn't it?
Yeah, they did. Yeah.
Yeah, I remember it well. You mentioned there Johnny Evans, and you've mentioned him a couple of times before. With Daniel Ballard on last week, and he was talking about Johnny and playing alongside him and how much he talks and helps young players through the game and stuff. With you coming to 33, 34 years of age now, do you like to take young players under your wing, or what? How do you react around young players, or how do you like to help them?
Now, I've definitely found probably in the last couple of years more than anything over the course of my career, I've definitely found myself speaking to the younger lads a lot more, giving them more advice, keeping them right. If they have anything to ask me, what they can improve on and do better, I'm always there for advice. And I've always found definitely that I've been speaking to the younger lads a lot more and sort of trying to help them, because they obviously want to go on to sort of achieve what maybe I've achieved for Aberdeen, etc., or elsewhere. And anything I can do to help them, I'm always open to obviously giving my opinion, because I've sort of been there and done it, which is good. And not always be the right probably advice, but more often than not it probably will be. So yeah, I've been there and done it. And if any sort of the younger kids want my advice, I'm always open to obviously giving it.
Life in the Irish League now. So obviously you started off at Dungannon, went to Derry City, and then how did that prepare you for life, or did it prepare you for life in England and Scotland?
No, the Irish League, it helped me massively. I played a lot of reserve football for Dungannon Swiss. As I said earlier, I played Gaelic football for years. I played Gaelic football right up until I had to make a decision between the soccer and the Gaelic, and that was when I moved to Derry City and signed my first professional contract. But the Gaelic football, playing soccer reserve level at Dungannon Swiss and playing with the first team, it definitely sort of made me a lot stronger, more robust. I was coming up against obviously older guys, hard hitting guys. Obviously me being a young tricky winger at the time, they were trying to sort of obviously tackle me all the time, and it was just about getting up and just getting on with things and staying positive. And I always sort of used it as a positive. If obviously players are out to kick you, must think you're obviously a talented player, and I used that to sort of help me push on. And there was only a period of about 6 months when I actually was in the first team playing week in, week out for Dungannon Swiss, and I done really well. And that's when Stephen Kenny happened to be at a game and spotted me, and then obviously the rest is history. I went on to sign a 3-year professional contract with Derry City, but definitely Dungannon Swiss done me a massive good stead, and as well as probably the Gaelic football as well.
How do you react now when you're waiting for, you've trained all week and you're waiting for a match day on a Saturday or Sunday, and you find out you're not in the team, maybe you're on the bench, or maybe you pick up an injury and you're feeling a little bit frustrated and upset about it? What sort of advice would you give to young lads out there to pick themselves up, or how to react to that situation?
Now, probably this season more so than probably the last maybe 7-8 seasons where I haven't maybe played as much football. I've just kept working hard and kept working hard behind the scenes. I've been quite fortunate. Even typical example this season, I haven't played as much football, but I've used probably the international games to sort of keep a smile on my face, keep working hard, and it just shows you, like, I wasn't playing much with Aberdeen, but I came into the international setup, kept my head down, kept working hard, and then just out of the blue, Ian Barclough just gave me an opportunity against Bosnia to come in and start from the start, which a lot of people probably didn't think would happen, and I was thankful for him to give me that opportunity, and then for me to come up with the equalising goal I was just over the moon, because I've been sort of there, I've been played on big stages, and he probably trusted me in that sense. So it's just about keep working hard, and opportunities will always come around. That's for sure, and I've always found that in my career as well, even at Celtic as well, where I was probably a sub a lot of the time, and then under my season at Tony Mowbray, I end up starting a lot of games as well. So it's just taking your opportunities when they come along, but always stay positive, because if you're not playing week in, week out, you will get more opportunities, and I think it's when you're out of the team, you should probably work that bit harder to obviously try and get into the manager's thoughts. But it is tough at times, but always stay positive and just keep working hard, as I said.
Niall, sorry, Tom. Niall,
Nope.
are you the type of player who would go and knock the manager's door? Would you go to Derek McInnes and say, listen, why am I not on the team?
Yeah, definitely. I think it's just building up that relationship with the manager, him knowing you as a person and knowing you as a player. And I've always felt over the years at Aberdeen, I've always come up with answers, whether it's scoring goals, assisting, playing in big games, and coming up with important moments. So, of course, I've went into the manager a few times and spoke to him and said what I had to say. So, managers can look at it two ways. If they think, oh, Niall might seem he's very happy, he hasn't came to see me, he must be happy he's not playing or whatever. So it's definitely you have to be vocal as well. Like sometimes there's a lonely world out there, and you can sort of only do what's probably required, and that's working hard. And if you need to go and speak to the manager, then so be it. So I've definitely found myself this season. I've went in a few times and spoke to him, and it's not going in battering the door down. It's just going in to give your opinion and give the reasons why you think you should be playing, and then obviously comes into his mind as well. And I've done that under Ian Barclough as well. I remember first few games I didn't play at all. I didn't even come on as a sub or anything, and had good conversations with him. And obviously I highlighted different aspects, such as I've been there, I've done it, I've played in these big tournaments, I've played in these big games, and I'd probably all escalate to maybe him giving me the opportunity to obviously play against Bosnia. And thankfully, I repaid the faith and with coming up with a goal.
Brilliant. Now, what sort of a manager do you think you'll be? Because you mentioned there you like to go into management. What would your style be?
Style, I would definitely. I'm a big believer in, especially home games. I always find, like, I like going with two out and out wingers with two strikers. I'm always a big believer in that. Sometimes like a 4-2-3-1 formation, trying to obviously have three sort of attacking players in behind a striker who's always going to create chances, but always sort of build my defence around probably a solid back four, I think. But with Gordon being on the sideline, I'd be a type of manager I sort of wouldn't be up and down the sideline shouting constantly. I'd probably be more chill. The typical example, Brendan Rodgers is probably the manager at the moment that I really like to watch. Even just sort of his body language and how he deals with players, how he deals with the press, media, everything is just, I think it's brilliant. It's very fascinating, and how he deals with sort of the players on and off the pitch, it just seems brilliant. And he's probably sort of the type of manager that I'm looking at the moment, that I really sort of like everything that he does.
Yeah, I would agree with that. Big admirer of him myself in terms of how he conducts himself, and obviously the job that he's done at pretty much every club that he's been at, and also from where he's came from to lead at that level is great. There's a few questions that have come in here. I'll try and get through as many of them as I can. What is your biggest sporting achievement?
Biggest sporting achievement is definitely scoring that goal at the Euros. It's what dreams are made of, to be honest. And I've said it in numerous interviews, numerous conversations with different people. Yes, it was unbelievable at the time to score that goal, but it's one of those moments that will never ever probably sink in until 20, 30 years down the line. Probably when I'm going to dinners with obviously ex-teammates, or I'm going to big conferences, or we're just sort of having a yarn about Euro 2016, and we're doing that. That'll be probably the moment where it'll probably sink in the most. So yeah, definitely the goal at the Euros, that's for sure.
Brilliant. That kind of answers one of the other questions as well. How did it feel to score against Ukraine in the Euros? Who was the best player you've ever played against? I know Liam had mentioned the toughest player. Who's the player that you admired the most, when you're on the same pitch as them?
Easily Cristiano Ronaldo. For me to score my first goal against Portugal was unbelievable. To score that night, and it was my first goal. Like, it was just an incredible feeling. The whole sort of atmosphere was all around his 100th cap. Such a big stage. Ronaldo picking up his 100th cap, and there was a young lad from Donegal sort of stealing his limelight, which was unbelievable. But I remember we played him at Windsor Park. We were 2-1 up, and I remember nutmegs on Steve Davis, which was unbelievable. I was just sort of standing in awe. But we're 2-1 up, and we're actually quite comfortable in the game, and then we end up getting 2 guys sent off. I think Chris Brunt gets sent off, and then Lafferty gets sent off after a while. He gets sent off quite close to them. But I remember, like, Ronaldo, he wasn't in the game much. We were winning 2-1, and then out of nowhere, within the space of 10 minutes, he scored a hat-trick. I just thought, wow, this player is special. But I loved Pirlo at Italy. He was sensational. So he's just the most composed, casual player you'll ever obviously see on a football pitch. He was just sensational.
I would agree with that. What a player he was. Liam, were you going to say something there?
No, I was just going to say, of all the players, and I'm a big Northern Ireland fan, but of all the players that I have seen at Windsor Park over the years, Pirlo was the guy who stood out for me. I thought he was immense. Always had half an acre of space around him every time he got the ball. Such an intelligent footballer, just oozed class. And yeah, I would agree totally with Niall. Pirlo for me was the one player that really, so many really world-class players have been at Windsor Park. For me, Pirlo was the jewel in the crown. One wee question, Niall, as we sort of enter that final run in your career, what's the chances of you coming back? Gillespie did it. Your old mate Sammy Clingan did it. Would you ever consider coming back and playing in the Irish League to wrap it all up?
It just depends how, like, where I am. If I'm still obviously relatively playing at a good level here in Scotland, then it's going to be harder for me. But you just never know. You never know. We'll wait and see what happens. But I definitely wouldn't rule it out. I always keep a massive keen interest in the Irish League whenever I can. But I definitely wouldn't rule it out. That's for sure.
We're going to finish off the last couple of questions. Niall, thank you very much for your participation so far. It's been great. Question here from Patrick Jackson. Who is the biggest joker in the Northern Ireland squad?
I've got a few. Josh McGuinness. I've shared a room with him for years, but Josh McGuinness and Kyle Lafferty, they're just big laughs. Is just daft as a brush sometimes, but all in a good way, all light-hearted. But you definitely need characters like Josh, big laughs in your squad to sort of keep the crack going. That's for sure. But yeah, them two's definitely up there with the jokers of the pack.
Fantastic. Okay, so there's a question here from Connor Bell. What's the best part of being a professional footballer?
Just being able to do something you love doing every day. Obviously, it's your job, you're getting paid for it. But I always find win, lose or draw on a Saturday, you're just waking up there on a Monday morning, you're going into obviously training, you're going into train with your teammates, but just being able to do something you love doing every day and having that as your sort of your life. And I've just been quite fortunate that I've had that for so long.
Niall, what does a week involve for you? You put your games on the Saturday, you finish at 5 o'clock roughly, you start the week on the Monday. Are you in on the Sunday or do you have Sunday off?
It just depends week by week. If we've got 2 games, we're usually in on Sundays, but typical example, we played there on Saturday. I was off yesterday. We're in today.
How long would you do today, or what do you do today?
Well, today was more or less like second day recovery for the guys that played. So we done like a gym session, bit of physio work, bit of gym work, like upper bodies, and just sort of getting our legs moving again on the bikes, out for a gentle jog, etc. The boys that didn't play, they trained, but then everyone will train tomorrow. We'll get a good tough session tomorrow. Probably do like a double session with a football in the morning with maybe legs in the gym in the afternoon. Wednesday's off. Train Thursday, train Friday. We'll travel to Glasgow on Friday after training for Celtic away on Saturday. So yeah, you're usually sort of off that 1 or 2 days a week if you play Saturday. But if it's a busy schedule, you're more often than that you're in nearly every day. But I'm just happy I'm in a routine and I'm able to sort of do that most days at the moment.
Brilliant.
That's a good insight to what it takes to play at that level as well. You know, you talk about training, double sessions, gym sessions, pitch sessions, physio, looking after your body, all that type of stuff. So it's a good insight for the young lads here that are listening in tonight as well. You know, to it's not just about your training on a pitch, it's about what you do off the pitch as well, which is obviously really important. Look, we're going to wrap it up at that. I think that's a nice way to finish. I'd like to thank Liam for hosting us this evening. Liam, I'm going to send you over a curry with octopus for a starter. I can stick in my head.
Wrap it in tinfoil and I'll send it on over to Niall.
But yeah, thank you, Liam, for joining us.
Pleasure.
Thanks obviously to Thomas Stewart for arranging it this evening. I know Thomas is good mates with Niall. So thank you very much.
Is anyone a question for Tommy Stewart?
Go on ahead, that's a good one.
Sitting there nice and quiet. We need to ask.
I'm sure Beckett has one.
Listen, lads, could I just say before we wrap it up, stay safe, stay healthy, and hopefully we'll all see each other very soon.
Brilliant. Thank you. Thank you, Niall, for joining us. Thanks, everybody, for taking part.
Thanks. Thank you.
Thank
you very much. Bye.
Bye. Bye.
Thank you.
Thanks, Thomas. Thanks, Liam. Now.
Cheers, man.